I'm Hugh Hewitt, back inside the Beltway where I feel most comfortable, especially during a war where you can talk to people throughout the day about what's going on. We are winning. We are winning decisively, and we will win decisively. I don't know what the end state looks like in Iran, because we are not seeking regime change so much as we are to destroy, again, not merely their nuclear power program and their nuclear weapons program, but the missile force that surrounds it, as well as the military structure that supplies it, and we're well on our way to there. President Trump gave a long press conference today. What he had to say is a lot more important than what I have to say. Let's go to cut number one.
When this is over, oil prices are going to go down very, very rapidly. So is inflation, so is everything else. But frankly, much more important than short-term or even long-term oil prices, you can't let the most violent, vicious country in the last 50 years have a nuclear weapon, because the Middle East will be gone, Israel will go first, without question, and they'll certainly take a shot at us before we get our act together and say we got to take them out. You can't let Iran, who's truly a nation of great terror and power. Look what happened in the last 2 weeks. They weren't supposed to go after all these other countries in the Middle East. Those missiles were set to go after them.
He's right. They're a radical, fanatical regime. By the way, oil is down to $93 a barrel now and dropping. Cut number two.
A lot of people are saying that he's badly disfigured. They're saying that he lost his leg, one leg, and he's been hurt very badly. Other people are saying he's dead. Nobody's saying he's 100% healthy. And he hasn't spoken, because the Ayatollah would sit and he'd spew hate from a form of a throne. Not as nice as a throne. I like the English throne much better. But it was a fancy chair. But he'd spew hate from his chair. But you'd see him a lot, right? This one we haven't seen at all. So that could be for a lot of different reasons. We don't know, Peter, if he's dead or not.
Cut number three, the president talks about who's giving help to open the Strait of Hormuz.
They want to make a deal. They're talking to our people. I don't know if they say that to you. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Don't forget, they are a country that for years, I didn't know this until recently, they're a country based on disinformation. And now they're using disinformation plus AI. And that's a terrible situation. That's a terrible situation. They showed all sorts of things happening in the last 2 weeks that never happened. Between their kamikaze boats that don't exist, between blowing up the aircraft carrier, one of the great ships in the world, the Abraham Lincoln, on fire. They showed it on fire. I called the general. I said, General, what's with the Abraham Lincoln? It looks like it's burning down. No, it's not burning down. Not a bullet was ever fired at it, sir. They know better. I said, this is my first glimpse of AI and what they've done with it. They showed buildings in Tel Aviv burning to the ground, high-rises burning. They showed buildings in Qatar. They showed buildings in Saudi Arabia burning, and they weren't burning. They weren't hit. It was all AI-based. Terrible. It's terrible.
And it is remarkable online. A lot of the left has fallen for this stuff, but I don't. I talk to people who know what they're talking about rather than go with the AI. Here's the cut on who's helping us and who isn't. Cut number four.
Have you been speaking with the French President Macron about the coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I have spoken to him. He's been on a scale of 0 to 10. I'd say he's been an 8. Not perfect, but it's France. We don't expect perfect.
Are you confident that France will help with the reopening of Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think he's going to help. I mean, I'll let you know. I spoke to him yesterday. I don't do a hard sell on them because my attitude is we don't need anybody. We're the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We don't need them. But it's interesting. I'm almost doing it in some cases, not because we need them, but because I want to find out how they react. Because I've been saying for years that if we ever did need them, they won't be there. Not all of them, but they won't be there. I was very surprised with the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom, 2 weeks ago, I said, why don't you send some ships over? And he really didn't want to do it. I said,
the United Kingdom is endangering the future of NATO. Because I've been a big NATO hawk. I'm a Reagan conservative and have been since the 80s. Peace through strength. Big supporter of NATO. And Poland is great. Finland, Sweden, they're frontline states. Ukraine is shipping their technology from their drone expertise to us. Everything is great, except our oldest allies are not, especially the United Kingdom. The president went on to say this, cut number 5.
We don't need anybody. We're the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We don't need them.
And cut number 6.
We are aggressively dismantling Iran's defense industrial base and ability to rebuild its missiles, and drone capability is getting down to close to zero. And we're hammering their capacity to threaten commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, with more than 30 mine-laying ships destroyed. We hit, to the best of our knowledge, all of their mine-laying ships. Now they can put them on other types of ships, I guess, and drop them in. But we don't know that any have even been dropped in. We're not sure that any have been. That's a big negative for them if they do it. It's a form of suicide. But we don't know that they have dropped any in. But we've hit all 30 of their ships and destroyed them. They're all at the bottom of the sea. We strongly encourage other nations whose economies depend on the Strait far more than ours. You know, we get less than 1% of our oil from the Strait, and some countries get much more. Japan gets 95%. China gets 90%. Many of the Europeans get quite a bit. South Korea gets 35%. So we want them to come and help us with the Strait. We have it in very good shape. The countries, I said, we've already taken care of Iran, but now, because of the fact that literally a single terrorist can put something in the water or shoot something or shoot a missile, a small missile, and it's fairly close range because it is a tight area, and which is one of the reasons they've always used that as a weapon. Iran has always used that as an economic weapon, and it's not going to be able to be used very long. Numerous countries have told me they're on the way. Some are very enthusiastic about it, and some aren't. Some are countries that we've helped for many, many years. We've protected them from horrible outside sources, and they weren't that enthusiastic. And the level of enthusiasm, it matters to me. We have some countries where we have 45,000 soldiers, great soldiers, protecting them from harm's way. And we have done a great job. And when we want to know, do you have any minesweepers? Well, would rather not get involved, sir. I said, for 40 years we're protecting you, and you don't want to get involved in something that is very minor. Very few shots going to be taken because they don't have many shots left. But they said, we'd rather not get involved. I just want the fake news media and everybody else to remember that was said, because I've been a big critic of all of the protecting of countries, because I know that we'll protect them, and if we ever needed help, they won't be there for us. I've just known that for a long period of time, just like I knew about the Strait, that it would be a weapon, which I predicted a long time ago, predicted all of this stuff. You guys were very generous in that. I predicted all of it.
He did predict it. He was right. And this is a great winnowing. It is a great dividing of those who are with us and those who are against us, and those who ran away, like the United Kingdom. Now, the United Kingdom has a historically left-wing government, and they've run away. But I listened to Winston Marshall today, interviewing an air marshal, been retired for a few years. The numbers for Great Britain it's a parade. it's a rose parade of a military. It's not a real military anymore. So, but they could send the Dragon or a few other ships, and it took them 2 weeks to get the Dragon out of port. Cyprus, their sovereign territory was attacked by Iran, and they're not getting involved because the left wing are pacifists. They're run by pacifists. The United Kingdom is no longer great. It doesn't rule a wave, much less the waves, and it's very sad. I'm Hugh Hewitt, back inside the Beltway in my beloved Virginia, where it's going to have tornadoes tonight, if their local weather report is correct. I'm joined by the former governor of the Commonwealth, our friend Glenn Youngkin. Governor, good to see you again. Are you sheltered and hunkered down for our tornado watch?
I'm not sheltered and hunkered down yet, but I am going to postpone my voting no on this redistricting until tomorrow, so that hopefully the folks can be safe around the voting establishments today. But we're looking out for the weather. I tell everybody, please be careful.
I came back early because I want to vote no on this redistricting initiative. How does it look to you, Governor? And tell the rest of the country what the Democrats are doing in Richmond.
Well, the first thing the Democrats are doing in Richmond is trying to take away the vote of millions of Virginians. We had a redistricting referendum in 2020. 2/3 of Virginians voted for an independent redistricting commission. It passed, and that's what's been used. And now they are trying to change this constitutional amendment and once again steal votes from people. They're trying to take it from a 6-5 Democrat-Republican House of Representatives team to 10-1 and steal 4 seats back. And it's just so unfair for 3 big reasons. 1, Virginians already voted on this. 2, because we in fact have a governor who is today on record of saying that she thinks that redistricting and gerrymandering is counter to democracy. And she promised everyone last summer that she would not support it. And now she's out supporting redistricting. And the third part of this is what they have done with these maps is insane. They're taking Northern Virginia and they are pulling it into the rest of the state. And let me tell you, if you live in Hampton Roads and now your congressional representative comes from Alexandria, or you live in the Shenandoah Valley and your congressional representative comes from Fairfax County, or you live in Richmond and your congressional representative is coming from Arlington. I mean, it's nuts. And so this is a moment for us to stand up as Virginians and vote no. The vote is open now. Early voting is on. It'll run all the way through April 21st. And this is a chance for us to keep them from stealing 4 seats from Republicans in Congress.
Now, the best argument I can make to people, it's a 50-50 state, maybe a little bit more blue than a little bit red, but it's purple. And the fact is we've got some very senior Congress people who have positions of influence within the Republican Party, which has a majority. This is suicidal for the interests of the Commonwealth. Just as a good government thing, Democrats should not want this to happen. They're not going to get any money from us.
No, it is insane to think that it's good for Virginia to gerrymander Virginia in this way. And the bottom line is now all of a sudden people who have had real senior folks representing us in all of the armed services committees, senior folks representing us in appropriations committees, are all of a sudden going to be pushed out of all of those committees, and we're going to see Virginia hurt. But I'm just going to go back for a minute. Not only is this illegal, because they started this process in an illegal way by carrying on a vote to get it started in the middle of the last election as opposed to before it, but we also recognize that they are lying to us. I mean, Abigail Spanberger, the current governor, stood up on the campaign trail last year and said she would not support redistricting and gerrymandering. And now she turns around and she is supporting it. And it's representative of the fact that everything she said on the campaign trail has proven to be false. She said she was going to stand up for cost of living challenges and affordability, and the first thing they do is raise everybody's utility bill by putting us back into this regional greenhouse gas initiative, which puts $500 million on ratepayers. They say they want to keep people safe, and they make Virginia a sanctuary state immediately. And we saw this poor woman murdered at a bus station by somebody who should have been handed over to ICE. And now finally, they're redistricting Virginia when she stood up and said that she would not redistrict Virginia. This is what you get from them when they promise to keep their word and they don't, and therefore we cannot trust them with taking over 10-1 representation in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Governor, I also want people to realize that the standard Glenn Youngkin press conference for the last 4 years was to announce that a new company was coming to the Commonwealth. And you would meet there with the CEO and you'd get the shovel out and you'd build something. First announcement under Governor Spanberger is Boeing is leaving for St. Louis. I think that's going to accelerate. If they pass their tax plan, goodbye, Virginia. I've enjoyed being a citizen, but I'm not sticking around for California taxes. I left once already. That's not going to be unique, is it, Governor?
No, it's not. And it's a real moment of just frustration and anger for me, because I feel like we built Virginia into the very best state in America to do business, and we were rewarded by having $157 billion of commitments from companies to expand and grow here. And now we see companies who are questioning whether they should have done that. We see Boeing pulling out one of their big divisions. And all of a sudden, we're going to see Tennessee and North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, these other states winning where we were winning just 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And it has everything to do with pushing an anti-business agenda from Richmond, where they raise the cost of doing business in Virginia in such a way that people say, nope, I don't want to be here. I'm going to go someplace else. And I'll tell you also, Hugh, what I'm hearing from folks is that people are starting to pack up and move as well. As I travel around, I'm in airports, people come up and say, Governor, I loved it when you were there, but I can't take it and I'm going to leave. And I think that the Democrats constantly forget that families choose where they want to live based on where their best future is going to be, and businesses choose where they're going to be based on their opportunity to thrive. Virginia had demonstrated during our 4 years we could do both. We grew people and we grew businesses, and it's going the other direction now.
Now, Governor, I do want to get one question in, because you were a friend of the military through your 4 years in Richmond. You've always been supportive of the military. We were involved in this combat with Iran. I've been playing the president's press conference. I think it's going extraordinarily well. I got family in the Navy. They think it's going extraordinarily well. What do you think of the mission? What do you think of the need to see it through?
Yeah, we have to see this through to comprehensive victory. There's no half measure here. And therefore, I am so proud of the men and women who serve the American Armed Forces. They are the best in the world, the best it has ever been. And they will, in fact, do the duty that needs to be done, which is a comprehensive victory. Iran can never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. They must never have the ability to attack their neighbors. They can no longer fund their proxies. We have seen already the decimation of their Navy, the decimation of their leadership. And our great military has to finish this job in a comprehensive way. I'm 100% behind them, and I ask for God's blessing on each and every one of them.
And a final question. We had a terrorist attack at Old Dominion U. You put a lot of time and effort into preparing our universities and our schools to be safe. It's shocking, but it's a reality, Governor. Do you think the Democrats are up to dealing with this at the state level?
I don't think they are. I think they firmly believe that people who are naturalized American citizens who come out and pledge allegiance to ISIS should stay in the country. And I firmly believe that someone who is a naturalized citizen who pledges allegiance to ISIS and has to go to jail because of it should have their citizenship revoked, and they should be deported immediately. That guy should have never been in America. That guy should have been deported a long time ago. And the fact that because of soft policies on these kinds of moments, it allows a murderer, a terrorist, to stay in the United States and take the life of a hero at Old Dominion University. And I'm going to tell you, those ROTC students in the classroom are heroes, and I just pray for that man's family. He was a true American hero, and it should have never happened.
Governor, good to see you. We will be out voting no on the initiative before April 24th. Do not wait. Get out and vote tomorrow once the rain stops. Thank you, Governor Glenn Youngkin. President Trump gave a big press conference today. Let's go to the next cut from the presser.
Our powerful military campaign to end the threats posed by the Iranian regime continued in full force over the past few days. They have been literally obliterated. The Air Force is gone. The Navy is gone. Many ships have been sunk. They're warfighting ships, but I guess they didn't know how to use them. And anti-aircraft is decimated. Their radar is gone, and their leaders are gone. Other than that, they're doing quite well. They've been a terror for 47 years. And now, I guess, the world, through the United States, with the help of Israel, is doing what should have been done many years ago. Should have been done many years ago. Since the beginning of the conflict, we've struck more than 7,000 targets across Iran, and these have been mostly commercial and military targets. We've achieved a 90% reduction in their ballistic missile launches and a 95% reduction in drone attacks. The missiles are trickling in now at very low levels because they don't have too many missiles left. We've also attacked the manufacturing plants, where the places where they manufacture the missiles and the drones, and that's going on today. We just hit 3 of them today, and it's getting very hard for them to manufacture. More than 100 Iranian naval vessels have been sunk or destroyed over the last week and a half. That has to be some kind of a record. Additional strikes continue to launch from all directions every.
He's right about that. Yeah, let's back up and do Karg Island, because he also mentioned Karg Island, cut number 7.
And as you know, we attacked Karg Island and knocked it literally, destroyed everything on the island except for the area where the oil is. I call it the pipes. We left the pipes. We didn't want to do that, but we will do that. We can do that on 5 minutes notice. It'll be over. But for purposes of someday rebuilding that country, I guess we did the right thing. But it may not stay that way. Just one simple word and the pipes will be gone too, but it'll take a long time to rebuild that. We are aggressively dismantling Iran's defense industrial base, and ability to rebuild its missiles and drone capability is getting down to close to zero.
He doesn't want to destroy the ability of the Iranian people to make money via oil or to make power via their plants. But he can. And give that order tonight, and the American military will carry it out. But we're up against fanatics. The people are going to have to rise up eventually if it's going to be done with it. And we need a little bit of help with the Strait of Hormuz, SOH, not coming from Keir Starmer, cut number 9.
Have your advisors told you anything in terms of how long we can expect gas prices as high as they are right now?
I don't need advisors to tell me that. I know what it is. You know, the Prime Minister of UK, United Kingdom, yesterday told me, I'm meeting with my team to make a determination. I said, you don't need to meet it with the team. You're the Prime Minister. You can make your own. Why do you have to meet with your team to find out whether or not you're going to send some minesweepers to us or to send some boats? I said, you don't have to meet with your team. It's the same thing here. I can tell you that when this is over, oil prices are going to go down very, very rapidly. So is inflation. So is everything else.
They dropped to $93 a barrel already today because the Saudis are beginning to use their pipeline. Here's my relief factor. It's my pipeline to getting rid of the minor aches and pains. Did 5 miles this morning before the storms came to D.C., but I'm taking 2 of these a day because I've done something to my left arm. And you know what? Relief factor will help with that. I don't have the minor aches and pains. I did 5 miles this morning by the Potomac because the storms are rolling in tonight and be here overnight. So I wanted to get those done. And I got them done. I feel fine. It's been a week since I was able to find the time to do 5. But I had it this morning, so I got it done this morning. I'll feel fine tonight. Relief factor works on the minor aches and pains. What I've done to my shoulder is not minor. I don't know what it is. And I don't know who to go to see about it. And I haven't really got a lot of time. But in the meantime, I'm doubling down on the relief factor to make sure if it's got something to do with inflammation. I don't. I think it's, I don't know. It cannot be a rotator cuff because it's from the middle of the arm to the top of the arm. Something about tendonitis. No, relief factor works on tendonitis. I don't know. I don't know what I did. But relief factor will do the best it can, and it's really good. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. I've been taking it for 13 years. Get started at relieffactor.com. Relieffactor.com. The starter pack is $19.95. Go and try it at relieffactor.com. Let's go back to President Trump's press conference. Cut number, I believe, we're on 9.
strikes and
or
kind
not?
of an opposition movement that could become a viable leader in Iran?
Well, the biggest problem, and you know, we have brave people in this room, but the biggest problem that I see is that, you know, they put out a warning, and we have the warning. We get everything they get. And it said any protester that goes onto the street will be immediately shot and killed. This is a little tougher than the American way. This is not quite as tough as, nobody can believe it. So I can't imagine, they don't have guns, and the other ones have guns. Highly sophisticated machine guns and AK-47s and other kinds of guns. And they did that with the women. So the women had 250,000, even 500 people protesting a year ago. And they shot women right through the middle of the forehead with snipers. And they didn't have to do many. About 10 went down bleeding profusely, and 250 to 500,000 women went running in the other direction, because they can be brave, but they're not stupid, and they have no gun, and you have snipers in buildings specifically for this reason. So a woman goes down falling, bleeding from the head, and it doesn't take long for that to spread. And when that spreads, that crowd dispenses. And nobody else has been able to do that to the extent that these people are violent. They killed a minimum 2 weeks ago, 32,000 people. So, and they put out actually a notice 2 days ago. If you protest, you will be shot and killed. So, I don't know. I would say Mike Johnson's the only person I know who's the courage.
Okay, they have a lot of courage, but they're not stupid. I like that. Admiral Brad Cooper gave an update today. I want to make sure that you hear it. Cut number 16.
Hi, I'm Admiral Brad Cooper, the commander of U.S. Central Command, here to provide another update on Operation Epic Fury. First, I want to remember and honor our fallen warriors who made the ultimate sacrifice in the KC-135 refueling aircraft incident last week. We hold their memories and their families, their friends and their teammates in our prayers. Their selfless service and dedication hardens our resolve. For 16 days, we've delivered overwhelming firepower deep into Iran. This past Friday, U.S. forces executed a large-scale precision strike on Karg Island, destroying more than 90 Iranian military targets, including storage bunkers for naval mines and missiles and other military infrastructure. To date, our Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps aviators have collectively flown more than 6,000 combat flights, demonstrating the unmatched capability of America's joint force as we maintain air superiority over Iranian skies. We continue to remain centered on our military objectives. These are well-defined and include eliminating Iran's ballistic missiles, drones, and naval threats. It's one thing to defend by striking launchers and intercepting missiles and drones, but it's another thing to eliminate the wider manufacturing apparatus behind them. And we are doing that today. We've talked about it in concept. Here's what it looks like in reality. Let me show you, for the first time, a few examples of how we are dismantling Iran's defense industrial base, which will prevent threats to the region into the future. Here you see a photo from March 1st of a naval drone storage facility located near the Strait of Hormuz. This is the same location 8 days later, completely destroyed. Next, here's a photo taken of an attack drone production factory in Tehran on March 5th. Here's that same factory 6 days later after a devastating barrage of U.S. airstrikes. And finally, the Yazdi military depot, pictured here last month. These 8 buildings are part of the IRGC's missile command infrastructure and are used to produce light and heavyweight torpedoes. Now, here's that same military depot just last week, or what's left of it. U.S. and partner strikes are doing exactly what they are intended to do: deliver on very clear military objectives to eliminate Iran's ability to project power against Americans and against its neighbors. We're also zeroed in on dismantling Iran's decades-old threat to the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz. Through a combination of air, land, and maritime capabilities, we have successfully destroyed over 100 Iranian naval vessels, and we aren't done. We will continue to rapidly deplete Iran's ability to threaten freedom of navigation in and around the Strait of Hormuz. Our progress remains steady, and we remain vigilant against the enemy. Now, a few thoughts about Iran. Over the last 2 weeks, they have launched attacks on Oman, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Jordan, Cyprus, Turkey, Azerbaijan, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Iraq, Kuwait, and Bahrain. In each of these countries, they are deliberately attacking innocent civilians. They've done this more than 300 times, which demonstrates their true nature as a global leader of terror. In just the last few days, the Iranian regime launched a reckless attack against civilian neighborhoods in Tel Aviv with cluster bombs, an inherently indiscriminate type of munition. We join countries across the region in condemning this aggression, and we stand shoulder to shoulder with our partners in bolstering our own defenses. In sum, I will reinforce what I said before. Iran's capabilities are declining as our capabilities and advantages continue to build. And finally, I'd like to talk about the extraordinary 50,000 Americans who are deployed across the region executing this vital mission. It's long been my belief that every success we have begins and ends with our people. And today I'd like to recognize our unsung heroes, the sustainers enabling America's joint force to unleash this devastating firepower 24/7. To be clear, there's no other military on earth that does logistics like the U.S. military, and our team is at the top of their game today. They're managing distribution networks that span thousands of miles to ensure that munitions, fuel, and supplies reach warfighters on the front line on time, every time. To all our sustainers and logisticians, thank you and keep up the great work. And to the entire Operation Epic Fury team, keep pushing, remain steady, fight to win. Thanks so much and Godspeed.
Admiral Cooper is an extraordinary communicator, as is Secretary Hegseth, as is General Kane, as is President Trump. They're doing a great job sending the message to Iran, and they know this. They can't win. They can't survive this. We can keep this up forever, and we will if we have to. Open up the straits, throw the cards on the table, give up. Unconditional surrender of your nuclear program, your missile program, and the war can end. I hope you're watching on the Salem News Channel, seeing all these great briefings by Admiral Cooper and others. Let's go to Vice Admiral Kevin Donegan, retired, on with This Week with Martha Raddatz yesterday, cut number 19.
I would say that if you look at the campaign CENTCOM's initiated, this was built into it from the beginning. And when you think about it in terms of the things that the chairman said, or things that Admiral Cooper said his mission was, one of the things in there was to go after the Navy. And what they really meant was Iran's capability to control the straits when this is over. Because we don't want them to have power projection capability.
It's clipping out on us. He went on to say, we've been planning for this for 30 years. It's what everybody says. We have been planning for this for 30 years. Let me try one more cut of President Trump promising what was going to happen today. That is cut number 13. Can we play cut 13, or is it frozen?
Doing what they're doing. But we're hitting them very hard. And today is a big day where we're pounding a certain area that has very much to do with the strait. And I think we'll get it going very soon. In addition, we do have other nations coming in. You need people to watch and people to see. We have other nations coming in. Yes, please.
To watch, people to see. We'll see who our friends are. Great Britain is not our friend right now because they're run by morons. And when you listen to Winston Marshall talk with a retired air marshal, you'll know why. They haven't got anything. They have a grand total of 14 frigates and destroyers. They have 2 aircraft carriers. That's not enough escorts for one. And their air force is a shadow of what it was. They have 1 submarine operating right now out of 7. 1. Great Britain is not so great. And they have played it fast and loose with a parade military. It's a Rose Bowl parade military. Good for one day of the year. And it's showing up now. Let me remind you about Food for the Poor. The banner at the top of HughHewitt.com says, give living water. Listen to what one person in the highlands of Guatemala says about Food for the Poor.
We could never, ever do it without Food for the Poor and their donors. And we pray for you every day. And I know that person up in the mountain, they'll be praying. They'll be praying and blessing you for the rest of their lives.
I think what they're saying, clean water is the ability to live safe, not thrive. I mean, it's not other than an impoverished area. But clean water is the first step to thriving. Food for the Poor has been doing this for decades. Your contributions to them are wholly tax deductible. Please be as generous as possible. $50 provides clean water for children, 2 children, for a year. $50. Can you do that during Lent? The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com, or you can call 855-359-4673. 855-359-4673. Morning glory and evening grace, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, day 17 of the war with Iran. I believe we are winning decisively, comprehensively, every way which way is possible. And the regime is shaky, but isn't fallen, hasn't cracked yet. But their military has been reduced to rubble. They're probably down to 10% of what they had at the beginning. They're threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz off and on. I'm not sure they can, but we're going to make sure that they can't. In the meantime, I'd like to know whether you think we're winning, because I do. 1-800-520-1234. 1-800-520-1234. Give me a call. 1-800-520-1234. Here's Jake Tapper yesterday on State of the Union.
President Trump and his allies are still frustrated with journalists for having the audacity to report on the war with Iran in ways that they do not approve of, rather than simply cheering it on. Take President Trump baselessly claiming on Truth Social that the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and other low-life papers and media actually want us to lose the war. The most surprising attack on the news media, however, might have come from former Bush White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer. Now, you might think that someone who was part of an administration about whom President Trump said, quote, they lied, they said there were weapons of mass destruction, there were none, and they knew there were none, unquote. You might think somebody like that might sit this one out. But no, Mr. Fleischer accused the media of constantly painting a picture of America losing when it is actually winning. And his proof was this October 2001 New York Times article about Afghanistan by the late Johnny Apple. It was specifically about the risk of Afghanistan becoming a Vietnam-like quagmire, an idea that Fleischer found preposterous since key cities such as Kabul fell to the U.S. just days later. Of course, the war didn't end after Kabul fell. Bush put boots on the ground and Afghanistan became a 20-year quagmire. Quagmire is a word that Secretary of Defense Hegseth used this week to describe it. And remind me, who controls Kabul right now after we beat the Taliban? The story that Fleischer disapprovingly cited concludes, quote, in Afghanistan as in South Vietnam, there was a huge question about who would rule if the United States vanquished its foe. Washington never solved that issue satisfactorily after the assassination of Ngo Dinh Diem in 1963. And solving it in Afghanistan, a country long prone to chaotic competition among many tribes and factions, will probably not be much easier, unquote. Every reporter that I know wants the United States to succeed in every way. And the way that reporters help that happen is by asking questions of people in power and not blindly cheering on leaders who take the nation to war. I guess when it comes to Ari Fleischer versus Johnny Apple, you can say that the Bush White House and its spokespeople are the ones who got it right about the war in Afghanistan. You can say that. That, of course, is not what the facts and history say.
All right. Jake's a patriot. Jake sports military. His book, The Outpost, one of the best books on Afghanistan. The movie that was made from it, very, very good. Don't question Jake's desire for us to win quickly. I, however, know a lot of reporters who don't want us to win. I have worked with reporters who are anti-American. I know a lot of reporters inside the Beltway who want anything bad to happen to Donald Trump, no matter what the cost. And so it's simply not true that journalists are in favor of this war. Now, they are engaged in a demoralization campaign in many places, reporting the news as direly as they can, and suggesting that because we're not in complete control of the Strait of Hormuz after 16 days, we've lost. It's absurd. It's thank goodness they weren't reporting World War II on January 23rd, because December 23rd, 1941, because we're in bad shape on December 16 days after December 7th. And we are winning. We control the air. We're methodically destroying their military assets. We can blinker Iran out. But here's the hard math. There are 92 million Iranians, 1 million in the regime, between 150 and 250,000 in the IRGC, the rest of that 1 million in the besiege. They are part of the regime. They are brutal. They are violent. And we are doing what we can, along with Israel and our Gulf allies, and soon I hope others, to reduce their ability to influence the world's commerce and to lose power. Not sure we can make that happen, but we certainly have and will continue to keep them from obtaining a nuclear weapon, and we're going to destroy their ability to produce so many missiles that they can threaten Europe, not just the Gulf allies. We can do all that. I'll talk about it with Ben Talabou in the next hour. He's the expert on the Iranian missile program. But let's go to the phones. Nita in Marietta, Georgia. What do you think, Nita?
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I tell you, I think Trump is playing a masterful chess game, and the reporters and all the naysayers are still playing checkers. And he just sees a bigger picture, and he's playing so far ahead of the game that they can't see it. And they're being very small-minded. That's my opinion.
I think they can see it. I don't think they want to report it. But thank you, Nita. Joe in Springfield, Maryland. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Hugh. First and foremost, I want to thank you for the great work that you do. You're just incredible in all that you do. Listen to you every day. In regard to the subject matter, we are winning. And one of the main reasons we're winning is they no longer have any bargaining chips, Hugh. They're out of bargaining chips. So we need to continue with this until it's over. And I'm so proud of our president. I'm very proud of you. We need more people like you, Hugh. And I just want you to know, every day I get up, I thank the dear Lord for you and what you do. So keep up your great work.
Thank you, Joe. I don't do as much as the lowest ranked member of the military, but I do my part as a journalist, willing to report facts. The fact is we are winning. We are crushing the Iranian evil regime, and I hope we continue to do so at force. Thank you, Joe. Don in L.A. Hey, Don.
Great job. Great job as always. Yeah, we're winning every way you can measure winning. Let's just carry it all the way through. You know, I have a lot of Iranian Persian friends here in L.A., as you can imagine, and they're telling me their source of people inside Iran, when they're marching, they're getting machine gunned. They're unarmed, but they're chanting, Pahlavi will return. So let's not, win the war and lose the peace. There's no Delcy Rodriguez in Iran. So let's get a real government of the people in there, and then we'll have done our job all the way.
Well, we're not going to commit 100, 200,000 ground troops. We're not going to do that. And so I'm not sure that it is possible for Crown Prince Pahlavi to return. But I don't know what's going to happen. I know the number one objective, the destruction of both the ability and the will to build nuclear weapons. Number two, to deter anyone attacking the attempt to do so. That's number one. And number two, there are other goals on top of that. I'll talk about it with Ben next hour. Don't miss that, Don. Thanks for the call. Shannon, Columbia, South Carolina. Hi, Shannon.
Yes. Thank you for a great show and a great program. We are winning. I am not tired of winning.
Huh.
President Trump is doing an excellent job, and NATO should help us. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bill in Omaha, Nebraska, 1-800-520-1234. Hi, Bill.
Hi. It's a great honor to be on your show. My wife and I watch it all the time, and we enjoy your programming. I think we're winning. I think that America sometimes has a short sight in terms of thinking that things have got to immediately change, and we can actually win if we just have the resolve.
It takes a long time to win a war with even a second-rate power. They're not a first-rate power. They're not China. They're a second-rate power. They're not a nuclear power, so we can go to war with them without risking a nuclear exchange. But it still takes a long time. It's a vast country. It's 91 million people. It would fit inside the United States, if you've seen the overlay, it's enormous. And we're not going to occupy it. We are going to destroy their ability to build nuclear weapons, and we are destroying their ability to protect those nuclear weapons with missiles. So we're well along the way to getting where we need to be. Thank you, my friend. Don't go anywhere, America. Over to HughHewitt.com. At the top, you'll see a blue banner that says, Give Living Water. That's my appeal to you to please, please, please be as generous as you can to Food for the Poor. Their phone number is 855-359-4673. 855-359-4673. But the easiest thing to do is to give $50. Gets clean water to 2 children for a year in the islands of Guatemala, on Haiti, and wherever else Food for the Poor works. They've been doing it for decades. They do it because of you and the generous people like you. Thousands of you have stepped up. Please keep stepping up. $50, $500, $100 at a time. Thank you in advance. Are we winning in Iran? It's obvious that we are, but a lot of members of the press don't want you to know that. They're defeatist, and it's ridiculous. But I thought I'd ask you. Let's start with Barry in Orlando. What do you say, Barry?
Hey, Hugh, how are you?
Good, good, good.
I think we're blessed to have a guy like Trump in the White House. We needed to do this, or else we'd be, smoldering. At least Israel would be. We needed to take these guys out because when they said death to America, they meant it.
They meant it. They meant it for 47 years, and they were approaching the point where they could have delivered death blows. We've seen how they act vis-a-vis their own people. We've seen how they act vis-a-vis their neighbors. And I'm glad we're doing this. I'm glad we're winning it. And I'm mystified by the American media, which insists on trying to sell the idea that we're not. But we are. Thank you, friend. One more. Bill in L.A. What do you say, Bill?
Hey, Hugh, I recall how horrified my Columbia J School colleagues were when Iran's proxy, Hezbollah, kidnapped reporter Terry Anderson in the mid-'80s and held him hostage for 5 years. So I don't see why the legacy media would not be happy that we're crushing a regime that hates them, hates journalism, and hates the Internet.
I don't know either, except they hate Donald Trump more. That's it, Bill. That's all it is. Thank you. Let's go for those who just got in your car. You are on your way home because it's we got some wild storms in Virginia. Go back over what the president had to say at his presser today. Cut number 1.
When this is over, oil prices are going to go down very, very rapidly. So is inflation. So is everything else. But frankly, much more important than short-term or even long-term oil prices, you can't let the most violent, vicious country in the last 50 years have a nuclear weapon, because the Middle East will be gone. Israel will go first, without question, and they'll certainly take a shot at us before we get our act together and say we got to take them out. You can't let Iran, who's truly a nation of great terror and power. Look what happened in the last 2 weeks. They weren't supposed to go after all these other countries in the Middle East. Those missiles were set to go after them.
Okay, let's keep going. Cut number 2.
A lot of people are saying that he's badly disfigured. They're saying that he lost his leg, one leg, and he's been hurt very badly. Other people are saying he's dead. Nobody's saying he's 100% healthy. And he hasn't spoken because the Ayatollah would sit and he'd spew hate from a form of a throne. Not as nice as a throne. I like the English throne much better. But it was a fancy chair. But he'd spew hate from his chair. But you'd see him a lot, right? This one we haven't seen at all. So that could be for a lot of different reasons. We don't know.
We don't know, but we speculate he's not alive. Cut number 3 on does Iran want to make a deal?
They want to make a deal. They're talking to our people. I don't know if they say that to you. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Don't forget, they are a country that for years, I didn't know this until recently, they're a country based on disinformation. And now they're using disinformation plus AI. And that's a terrible situation. That's a terrible situation. They showed all sorts of things happening in the last 2 weeks that never happened. Between their kamikaze boats that don't exist, between blowing up the aircraft carrier, one of the great ships in the world, the Abraham Lincoln, on fire. They showed it on fire. I called the general. I said, General, what's with the Abraham Lincoln? It looks like it's burning down. No, it's not burning down. Not a bullet was ever fired at it, sir. They know better. I said, this is my first glimpse of AI and what they've done with it. They showed buildings in Tel Aviv burning to the ground, high-rises burning. They showed buildings in Qatar. They showed buildings in Saudi Arabia burning, and they weren't burning. They weren't hit. It was all AI-based. Terrible. It's terrible. And I think that's the only thing they do well. They're negotiating, and we always talk. Somebody said, well, would you talk? Why would you even talk to them? I talk to everybody because sometimes good things come out of it. But I don't know if they're ready yet. They're taking a pounding. I don't know if they're ready yet. And we don't even know their leaders. Look, all of their leaders are dead, as far as we know. But they're all dead. We don't know who we're dealing with. We knocked out the first group. Then the second group met, 88 met to pick the leader because the first group was all dead. And the second group got knocked out. They're all dead. Then the third group met. I would think they're a little nervous about meeting. I don't know if they're nervous. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're crazy. If they're not nervous, then they're crazy. But we met with the next group, but we don't know who their leader is. We have people wanting to negotiate. We have no idea who they are.
Cut number 3.
Have you been speaking with the French President Macron about the coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I have spoken to him. He's been on a scale of 0 to 10. I'd say he's been an 8. Not perfect, but it's France. We don't expect perfect.
Are you confident that France will help with the reopening of Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think he's going to help. I mean, I'll let you know. I spoke to him yesterday. I don't do a hard sell on them because my attitude is we don't need anybody. We're the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We don't need them. But it's interesting. I'm almost doing it in some cases, not because we need them, but because I want to find out how they react. Because I've been saying for years that if we ever did need them, they won't be there. Not all of them, but they won't be there. I was very surprised with the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom, 2 weeks ago, I said, why don't you send some ships over? And he really didn't want to do it. I said, you don't want to do it. We've been with you. You're our oldest ally. And we spend a lot of money on, NATO and all of these things to protect you. I mean, we're protecting them. We're working with them on Ukraine. Ukraine's thousands of miles away, separated by a vast ocean. We don't have to do that, but we did it. Well, Biden did it. I mean, I have to be honest with you. Biden got taken to the cleaners. But we worked with them in Ukraine. We don't need to work with them in Ukraine. And then they tell us that we have a mine ship around, and they don't want to do it. I think it's terrible. No, I was very surprised. I told him, we requested 2 aircraft carriers, which they had, and he didn't really want to do it. And then right after the war essentially ended, meaning they were obliterated, he said, I would like to send the aircraft carriers. I said, I don't need them after the war has ended and won. I need it before the war. So I was very upset not upset.
Yeah, we are watching. We are all watching the United Kingdom disappoint every American who wants to win. President Trump ran over the stats since the war began. Cut number 8.
Our powerful military campaign to end the threats posed by the Iranian regime continued in full force over the past few days. They have been literally obliterated. The Air Force is gone. The Navy is gone. Many ships have been sunk. They're warfighting ships, but I guess they didn't know how to use them. And anti-aircraft is decimated. Their radar is gone, and their leaders are gone. Other than that, they're doing quite well. They've been a terror for 47 years, and now I guess the world, through the United States, with the help of Israel, is doing what should have been done many years ago. Should have been done many years ago. Since the beginning of the conflict, we've struck more than 7,000 targets across Iran, and these have been mostly commercial and military targets. We've achieved a 90% reduction in their ballistic missile launches and a 95% reduction in drone attacks. The missiles are trickling in now at very low levels because they don't have too many missiles left. We've also attacked the manufacturing plants, where the places where they manufacture the missiles and the drones, and that's going on today. We just hit 3 of them today. And it's getting very hard for them to manufacture. More than 100 Iranian naval vessels have been sunk or destroyed over the last week and a half. That has to be some kind of a record. Additional strikes continue to launch from all directions every single hour.
The extraordinary competence of the American military is on display, as is the Israeli military. And they are our closest ally. They have the will and the ability to project power regionally, and I would not underestimate their ability to project power quite a long way. They're an intelligence superpower, certainly. And I'm glad they're on our side and we are on their side, and we will finish this. We will get it done. Cut number 10, where are the Iranians? The president answered that.
Strikes and kind of an opposition movement that could become a viable leader in Iran?
Well, the biggest problem, and you know, we have brave people in this room, but the biggest problem that I see is that, you know, they put out a warning, and we have the warning. We get everything they get. And it said any protester that goes onto the street will be immediately shot and killed. This is a little tougher than the American way. This is not quite as tough as nobody can believe it. So I can't imagine. They don't have guns, and the other ones have guns, highly sophisticated machine guns and AK-47s and other kinds of guns. And they did that with the women. So the women had 250,000, even 500 people
I want to talk
protesting.
about the women movement 5 years ago, and he mentioned later they murdered 30,000 plus. I think the number is 35,500 is believed as the low end. And so people aren't going to go out there and march, but they sure are cheering, and they're sending pictures to the Israelis of where the besieged, that's the thug groups, the paramilitary, the parapolice, out in the street where they are. And about NATO, the president said this, cut 14.
We have 1 or 2 that will not do it, that we've been protecting for about 40 years at, you know, tens of billions of dollars, Mr. Speaker. So I'll be reporting that to you in the House and the Senate, and I'll say, why are we protecting countries that don't protect us? And I've always felt that was a weakness of NATO. We were going to protect them, but I always said, when in need, they won't protect us. Now, this isn't need. Need would be one of the big boys. But I will say that we built the greatest military in the world.
And then he said about the possibility of Iran laying mines in the Strait. Cut number 15.
It's destroyed. We hit, to the best of our knowledge, all of their mine-laying ships. Now they can put them on other types of ships, I guess, and drop them in. But we don't know that any have even been dropped in. We're not sure that any have been. That's a big negative for them if they do it. It's a form of suicide. But we don't know that they have dropped any in. But we've hit all 30 of their ships and destroyed them. They're all at the bottom of the sea.
And they're going to stay there. It's really amazing that a Navy that took the Islamic Republic of Iran, decades to build, is gone. And the missile factories that they've taken a decade to build, they're gone. The nuclear enriched material is not gone. It's somewhere, and that is a concern because they can make dirty bombs. But the war isn't over. I don't even think we're at the end of the beginning yet. But it is awfully one-sided, and I'm glad we belong to a civilized country that is not bombing civilians and taking great pains not to do so. I'm Hugh Hewitt with my Yinzer-in-Chief, Selena Zito. Selena, you're very happy with the World Baseball Classic, aren't you?
I mean, we've got two full-fledged Yinzers in there and one who calls himself an honorary Yinzer with Paul Skeen. So I'm feeling all the greatness.
I want Paul to bitch the final game, but I don't think he will he? Because that's we're going to play Italy or Venezuela, one or the other.
I don't know. I mean, I want him to too. I love him. That guy's a beast. He's an Air Force. He was in the Air Force Academy. He is so patriotic, and he's such a good leader on that team. But they all are. This has been the most fun I've had in baseball, and I've gone to 3 World Series.
All right. Now I'm going to play for you. That was a long time ago because if it's the Pirates, that's a long time. All right. So, Selena, Ezra Klein, New York Times podcaster. I've known Ezra for 35 years. He was 1 year ahead of my daughter. I saw him as the surfing Santa in the 7th grade play. And he went to the University of Santa Cruz and he got his BA. But, you know, I try very hard not to let that. He was a smart kid, eager kid, wanted to talk politics all the time. He's following his dream. He's done very well. He started Vox. He's at the New York Times. But when it comes to depth, sometimes I wonder. Here's the opening of his podcast today. We'll play little bits of it, and I'll get your comment. Let's start it.
I found myself struggling to describe the war President Trump has chosen to enter into with Iran. The strange lightness with which he seems to have chosen this.
Stay sheltered.
All right.
Leave your...
Let's stop right there. The strange lightness with which he has seemed to have chosen this. What does that mean, Selena?
I don't know. I don't know what strange lightness is, but I would sure love to see him do that podcast sort of as an on this day in 1776, because there's a whole lot of strange lightness that George Washington and Henry Knox and Nathaniel Greene and all of them went through in this time. And I'm sure glad there wasn't X, there wasn't podcasters, and there wasn't today's media covering it, because they would have given up and their souls would have been crushed by the way it would have been covered.
Israel Putnam would not have done well. I mean, Ezra Klein wouldn't have done well with Israel Putnam on Bunker Hill or in the retreat from New York. Here's part 2 of Ezra's opening.
Home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere.
I would say the war is spiraling out of control, but there's never a real pretense that it was under control.
All right, stop. Selena, is the war spiraling out of control, and was there ever any pretense that it was in control? I mean, these are vapid things to say.
These are very vapid things to say. And I imagine him in that sort of moody scenery that he's doing there, interviewing Benedict Arnold and why his mind changed after he was injured in the battle for Quebec, right? I mean, it gives you... I'm sorry.
It's so earnest. He's very earnest, though. Part number 3. Let's get more
hard
earnest.
To say Trump's plan for the war is failing because it is not clear there was any plan at all. There was a decision.
Okay, this is the one that gets me because I know too many people in the military. I have a son-in-law and nephew on active duty. My son just got off of active duty. Everything is a plan. This is the most planned. We've been planning this for 40 years. Where do people get off, Selena, talking about stuff like this?
It is astounding to watch that, to be honest with you. And it's almost like a dramatic reading of current events, and it's done with all kinds of atmospheres and different, camera angles. But the lack of depth is coming from what he's doing, and it's really disappointing to see this turned into sort of a stagecraft event.
It's not a political event. It's a war. 12 Americans have died. Many, yeah.
Yeah, it's a war, and our military has been extraordinary in this war, and it is such a sharp contrast to what we saw on August 27th of 2021. And it is what they have achieved should be talked about. I'm not saying cheered on, but at least talked about with the depth that it deserves, along with all of the sort of capabilities they have with technology. It's astounding. And yet he's turning it into days of our lives.
It is. All right, I also want to make sure I touch on someone on the internet got the great idea to suggest Butler was staged. The attempt to kill the president and the murder of Corey Compatore was staged. And you took out after them. Can you even believe someone did that and how far it traveled and how fast?
It traveled fast. It was cut and paste and used by a lot of people with very, very large accounts that I don't even know if they're real people. But that doesn't matter because it penetrates into the psyche. The good news is that only 10% of the entire country uses Twitter. And of that 10%, about 2/3 of it are the only ones that use it actively. So at least it's not something that penetrates in real life in the way they believe that it does. But it is crude, it's vulgar, it's insulting. Someone's husband, father, and son died that day right in front of me. And I saw two men gravely injured, and those bullets went right over my head. And you know, it's like people don't understand the shell shocked, right? People just stood there because you can't believe it's real. You can't believe
that was what the poster was saying. The poster said, well, they didn't act like there was an active shooter, and it was over too quickly.
Yeah. I didn't know there was like a handbook that went out and said, this is how you behave if there's an active shooting. And if you don't, then you're lying.
Yeah. Well, I want to compliment you for the rapidity with which you responded and the efficacy with which you responded and the fact that others joined you in responding and calling out that individual. Have they apologized?
No, of course not. No, because that would require them to have a soul. And
have they doubled
sure
down?
They don't have. Pardon? No.
Did they double down?
Yeah, they continue talking about it as if they have moral clarity on this.
Clickbait. That's all it was clickbait. Selena Zito, good to see you. Follow her on X at Zito Selena. Everything she writes is available at selenazito.com. President Trump's press conference covered a lot of ground, including this, cut number 11.
And yet every president knew. I've spoken to a certain president, who I like, actually, a past president, former president. He said, I wish I did it. I wish I did. But they didn't do it. I'm doing it. Yeah. Which president? I can't tell you that. I don't want to.
Can't tell you which president. And then there have been lots of reports that Iran was going to use a nuke. That's ridiculous. But the president got asked about it. Cut number 12.
Advisors David Sachs said the other week that the U.S. should, quote, declare victory and get out of the Iran war. He also warned that if the conflict escalates, Israel may contemplate the use of a nuclear weapon. Has he shared that assessment with you?
No, yes. And Israel wouldn't do that. Israel would never do that. And, yeah, there's a theory. You pounded them to hell, and you could just leave now, and it'll take 10 years for them to build back not nearly what they have right now. And I guess that's another theory. But we want to have it ended so that another president doesn't have. Look, for 47 years, no president was willing to do what I'm doing, and they should have done.
He's right. Let's get it over with. I'm in the Relief Factor studio inside the Beltway back at home. And I've got my Relief Factor. I took it in hour number 1. And I remind you, I'll take it again in hour 3 because I'm doing 2 packets a day while I'm trying to get my upper left arm working again. The starter pack is $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. If you call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, you will get that package, and you can try it for 3 weeks, and you can decide that, like me, I did my 5 miles this morning. Been a week since I did 5 miles. It was flat along the river. I won't feel any aches and pains. This, I don't know what I did. This is not working. May have to go see a PT about this. Minor aches and pains, though, all gone because of Relief Factor. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. Ask for the starter pack or go to their website. Find that starter pack, $19.95, 3-week supply at relieffactor.com. And please do remember, this is Lent. I'm asking people to be as generous as possible with food for the poor. Their banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. Give a listen to a volunteer.
We could never, ever do it without Food for the Poor and their donors. And we pray for you every day. And I know that person up in the mountain, they'll be praying. They'll be praying and blessing you for the rest of their lives.
What you do for them every day is just get them clean water. A gift of $50, completely tax deductible, or $500, or $5,000, or $5 million. If you happen to be a billionaire and you're listening, Food for the Poor has already built the infrastructure. They work with partner local churches. They've been doing this for decades. They've got a very low overhead. They get it done. Clean water, good substantial food to the lost and the least of the Caribbean and Central America. The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. It can handle any amount of donation from $5 to however much. And you can go there or you can call 855-359-4673, 855-359-4673, or go find the blue banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. I'm joined by the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy Senior Fellow, Behnam Ben Taleblu. He's been on before. He is an expert on the Iran missile program and on all things Iran-America. Behnam, welcome back. I don't know if you heard the president's press conference today. I've been playing a lot of it. First, your assessment where we stand on Monday afternoon in our war with Iran.
Well, great to be with you again, Hugh. Always a pleasure. Listen, I think militarily things are looking up. There's some real questions right now as to what will the U.S. do in the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, the maritime domain is really the area that has the eyes of everyone from markets to moneymakers to policymakers. That's where I think the president may be looking to get a military win to begin to be able to push away from the table. I certainly think it's doable, but nonetheless, it's costly, it's risky, but I think the more the regime escalates, the more they whole kind of use a sort of Damocles approach to ships entering and exiting the Persian Gulf, as they have been just hours ago, checking the insurance and the shipping and the flagging and the registry of all the ships that are coming and going. That is something that we cannot allow to happen. We cannot allow the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism to basically have a veto over who gets to use and cross the Strait of Hormuz. So in all likelihood, I think things are looking likely to escalate in the next week.
I think you're right. Oil is at $94 a barrel right now, down from Friday's $100 a barrel. As I think the world oil markets begin to recognize that Saudi Arabia's got a pipeline as an alternative. UAE doesn't, Kuwait doesn't, but the Saudis do, and they can offset a lot of the oil that doesn't make it through the strait. But I also believe I've heard so many naval experts. I'm a civilian, but I've got family in the Navy, family in the fight. I've got lots of experts telling me this has been gamed out for a long time, Behnam. It's not like anyone is surprised that Iran is trying this.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm surprised at the number of experts and policymakers that are trying to hold the Trump administration to account here, saying that the U.S. is fundamentally unprepared. I mean, there may be a criticism to level given force posture and time and political risk involved, but given the fact that the U.S. quite literally did this before in the 1980s, and given that the job of the Pentagon is to plan, and given even that the Obama administration was able to keep 2 carriers inside the Persian Gulf at times and be able to thwart and push back on the threats to actually close this strait, and that the Trump administration in term 1 dealt with things like limpet mine attacks, as well as later on drone attacks and drone buzzing, this was a surprise to literally nobody. And given the job of the Pentagon being to plan, I actually think our men and women in uniform will have quite a few tricks up their sleeve if they're given the time and the space to pull them out.
So, Ben, I want to play for you a little bit of Ezra Klein. Now, I've known Ezra for almost 40 years, maybe 35 years, because he was in elementary school with my daughter. And so I know him as the surfing Santa from the 7th grade play. So I've always tried to get that out of my mind because he's done well for himself. He's very articulate, hasn't ever held a classified job, has never been in national security work. So he kind of making up as he goes along. But today's podcast, well, it began this way. Play it for Behnam.
I found myself struggling to describe the war President Trump has chosen to enter into with Iran. the strange lightness with which he seems to have chosen this.
Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere.
I would say the war is spiraling out of control, but there's never a real pretense that it was under control. I find it hard to say Trump's plan for the war is failing because it is not clear there was any plan at all.
All right,
There
let's
was a
stop right
decision
there.
to strike.
These are cliches. These are words strung together to critique Donald Trump, and they're all manifestly false. I don't call them a lie because I think probably Ezra believes them, but he doesn't know anything about the military, and he doesn't know anything that we've done about them. What's your commentary on Ezra Klein's commentary?
Well, actually, the funny thing about this conflict is that if you have a rationale, you can take your rationale. It's kind of like Obamacare. If you like your provider, you can keep your provider. Or allegedly, that's what the administration used to say back in the day. If this is a human rights-driven mission for you, well, this is a mission against the regime. If this is counterproliferation, well, it's about stopping the world state sponsor of terrorism from getting nuclear weapons. If it's about defanging and leveling the playing field, well, certainly there's an opportunity there against the regime's missile and military apparatus. And if it's about freedom of navigation and economics, well, then there's a rationale for you to support what the U.S. Is doing in the Strait of Hormuz and in the Persian Gulf. So there's multiple rationales, multiple pathways that get you to the president being willing and able to pull the trigger to deal with this urgent national security challenge, unlike his predecessors. And while I do agree that wars can easily spiral out of control, and that is one of the things that the Islamic Republic is playing up and is playing towards, it's the goal of the more responsible power to be able to escalate not incrementally, but significantly, to show that time is not a weapon on the side of the adversary. It is on the side of the U.S. and its partners and allies. And ultimately here, the fact that President Trump is flexible offers, audiences like audiences in the New York Times more pathways to an off-ramp to exiting the conflict than actually doubling down and staying within the conflict. So the lack of a clearly defined end state, if you are a classic New York Times viewer or listener and you want less, not more conflict in the Middle East, that should be music to your ears as far as I'm concerned. If you're like me and you have a clear stated end goal and you want the president to double down and triple down to make sure that we can actually check every single box rather than just one of those military missions that I laid out, well, then you're actually going to be a little bit critical. So I'm a little bit puzzled by the criticism of the flexible approach the president has taken here by the likes of some at the New York Times.
I'm not puzzled only because it's what they do. But I want to try now to forget all the idiocy and articulate what John Wooden, who you're too young to remember, used to call the pyramid of success. And you start at the bottom and you build to the top. The very bottom of the pyramid of success here is, to me, the elimination of any nuclear weapons production capability. President Trump obliterated it. They began to rebuild it. He's obliterated it again, along with the help of Israel. I haven't seen much report on what the B-2s have been hitting. I hope they hit Pickaxe Mountain. But that is the most important bottom of the pyramid. Nothing else matters if that isn't done. How do you assess the success on that, Benham?
Well, we have two outstanding questions when it comes to the base of your pyramid. And, if this regime survives, and, if there is even what our office is calling a phase 2 at FDD, which is the potential to nest a larger mission against the security forces following a larger mission to defang this regime, if that is your goal right now, if you don't properly get rid of all of the nuclear capacity and capability, well, then you will have something like a Middle Eastern North Korea on your hands as you move closer and closer to dealing a death blow against this regime. So the two things that you're looking for, in my view, to make sure the pyramid has a long, flat base rather than a narrow, pointy base, is to make sure that, one, the fissile material, meaning the 400 plus kilograms of 60% uranium, is actually not on Iranian territory, whether that's destroyed or actually confiscated in some special forces mission. That is a TBD. But perhaps equally important is to destroy Pickaxe Mountain, either again with explosive charges inside or potentially something covert and sabotage inside, or with air power from the outside. The regime may be doubling down and digging a deeper hole in the ground, but they should always remember Uncle Sam has a bigger bomb. So the success of the counterproliferation mission against the regime's future nuclear capacity rests in dealing with Pickaxe Mountain and getting rid of the fissile material. Thus far, we haven't seen a movement towards that yet because the next layer of the pyramid has been the priority target for the administration, and that's been defanging the regime's missile program.
Yeah, on the second level of the pyramid, it's the destruction of the defenses of the nuclear program. And that destruction of the defenses is the missile arsenal about which you are expert. How do you view step two of the pyramid going? Because if it remains, it can be expanded and they can defend that enriched uranium. They can defend Pickaxe Mountain. They can do this all again times 10 unless we destroy their production capacity.
Yeah, the beating heart of Iran's ballistic missile production was struck during these U.S. operations in the past 2.5 weeks. And that is anywhere from 3 to 5 sites, but in particular, Khojir, Shahrud, Semnan, Parchin, and Esfahan. These are at least 5 facilities. The first 3, Khojir, Shahrud, and Parchin, that matter greatly to solid propellant production, motor development, casting, and things needed to actually produce and field a ballistic missile. And ballistic missiles form the backbone of the regime's policy of deterrence by punishment. So unlike America, Israel, the Arab states of the Persian Gulf, Iran doesn't have robust air and missile defenses that can defend it. The way it defends itself, the way it defends its regime, the way it defends its territory is the threat of punishment. And the main tool of that punishment right now is this arsenal of ballistic missiles, about 80 to 90% of the fire of which has been suppressed by the U.S. I believe, however, we are in a position of what political scientists call equifinality, which is many reasons why the regime's fire is suppressed. One is the success of the launcher mission, and 2 is the regime actually holding a few capabilities for survival purposes.
Behnam Ben Taleblu is with me. He is from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. Follow him at Real Behnam BT on X. Behnam, on Tier 1 that we discussed, we are winning decisively, but we have not yet won a decisive win. On Tier 2, which is the missiles, and you've named the 5 facilities, are we 50% of the way there, 70%? How do you judge it from afar?
Based on commercially available satellite imagery, you could top it off at about 80+%. Again, this is a back of the envelope calculation, but you need to marry the 80+% with the actual subterranean facilities that house what's left of Iran's missiles and Iran's launchers. And if you look at Iran's geography and you look at where missiles have been fired from before, and you layer on top of that commercially available satellite imagery, you get at least 4 chains of bases: a western, a central, an eastern, and a southern coastal. Knowing what we know about known or declared or revealed Iranian subterranean missile bases, many though not all of which are connected underground to each other, there are anywhere from 19 to 22 that need to be struck. I think there is evidence for anywhere from 17 to 20 that the Trump administration, again, using commercially available satellite imagery, has been able to strike. We cannot guarantee or verify 100% of those, nor can I tell you, from this distance, how damaged they are. But my logic is, and I wrote this before the war, rather than defend just against the missile, and rather than target just the launcher, you need to collapse the facility that houses both the launcher and the missiles and take that as a capability off of the playing field and then move towards capacity. That seems to be in slow motion what the Trump administration is doing, but I will say the bulk of the air power, given how much ISR we have, is being used to target those missile launchers, and that's why you see CENTCOM putting out so many videos targeting those launchers, which are out of their bases and in different areas than ever before.
Third level of the pyramid success is command and control, but for both their missile and their Navy. Those are the 2 arms of the Iranian military that can threaten the international community. Their Navy, it's been sunk. I would say we are almost at 100% success there. And the command and control structure for their country. What do you think about that?
This is a state that is not aspiring to be a Scandinavian welfare state that can actually provide for the means of its own people. Unfortunately, these are guys that are okay being king of the heap, king of the garbage dump. And in so many ways, they may make you burn through the country to get them. And even if we look before the conflict, before the 12-day war even, this was a regime that was sliding towards bringing Iran into failed state status anyway. And in that situation, given the fact that Khamenei, who was 86 before and now is deceased, wasn't guiding every single missile, wasn't choosing every single target, even though he was intimately involved in broader national security decisions in that country, it's highly likely you have a decentralized, almost zombie national security deep state choosing their targets, which is why they've thrice fired at NATO ally Turkey, why they've continued to fire at Qatar and the Omanis in the Persian Gulf, and even targeted Azerbaijan with drones. So you have a zombie state kind of that is decentralized, that doesn't have command and control, which is kind of forcing you to go after all of these units provincially to suppress and defeat them.
All right, so the penultimate level of the pyramid of success is to degrade the besieged so they cannot massacre tens of thousands of people again. The Israelis have been intent on doing this. There's really no way to make an educated guess about what percentage has been destroyed, but there are reports of defections and dismay among the ranks. What do you make of that?
Again, you're right. This stuff is largely anecdotal, but over, I would say, the past 3 to 5 days, the Israelis, based on publicly reported information, have been going against law enforcement forces and besieged facilities. We know that in the past, areas where compounds and barracks have been bombed, some of these security forces have put up tents. Then the Israelis have strafed the tents. We know areas where barracks and compounds have been bombed, and IRGC folks went into soccer stadiums, particularly on the periphery, not on the field, and those peripheries of those stadiums have also been bombed. We also know that, of course, many of these pseudo self-established besiege and law enforcement checkpoints to prevent against traffic flows and to kind of monitor the situation on the street have also been bombed. And we also know the regime is putting armored personnel carriers under things that give it physical cover to avoid getting struck, things like bridges and tunnels. And the Israelis still, with drones, seem to be able to do this. There's even reports right now that Iranian dissidents are using Iranian apps to be able to communicate externally with some Israelis to provide live targeting. Although this report has not been able to be independently confirmed, but it does marry with the zeitgeist of the spits and starts of information and of the willingness of many Iranians to be able to benefit from foreign support to disable this apparatus of repression.
So the at the top is regime change or regime coercion to a different kind of regime that doesn't threaten its neighbors. Might not be a democracy, but it might simply be defanged and new leadership, not mullahs, not theocratic fanaticism. How close to that do you think we are?
Well, I actually do not believe in the theory of regime evolution here. This is the Middle East, meaning things can get worse, not better, and indeed they are. And if this regime survives the major rounds of fighting, get ready for a Middle Eastern version of North Korea, which is more paranoid, more isolated, more militarized, and more keen on revenge and rebuilding than ever before. So the success of the defanging mission militarily will necessarily need to be nested into a larger counter-regime mission that is political. There will be no premature victory lap to be had just because of military successes alone. And that's why it's imperative the Trump administration stop trying to force a Venezuela model onto a country whose governing elite, whose military capacity, whose state, whose society, whose opposition looks nothing like Venezuela today. I don't believe you can actually have that somewhat softer, gentler Islamic Republic. I do believe here the Islamic Republic is going to force you to play to the edge, which is to win and knock out the system altogether, or to risk the collapse and potentially move towards failed state status. And I think in that dichotomy, Uncle Sam cannot be indifferent. It is doing quite well against the levels of the pyramid that you have raised, but not one of them, I want to stress, not one of them are yet at 100%. Some of them, like the missile one, are quite close, and that is an impressive achievement. But we have to remember, this is the Middle East. In the Middle East, you can have many a military victory, but few have had political victory. And that's why it's imperative to link the ways, means, and ends here.
So my last question, is the world better off today than it was 16 days ago? The world.
Yes, the world. In so many ways, given the fact that the Islamic Republic is firing more missiles than before, is threatening the Strait of Hormuz more than ever before, it's a measure of how much weaker it is than ever before. And the weaker and the more defanged this regime is, the net positive it will be to its people, to the region, to America, to Israel, and to the world. But there is no premature victory lap to be able to have yet. A weak regime can still be lethal, it can still rebuild, and to provide oxygen to a regime that will be willing to use these weapons more than ever before would be a mistake. So just because things are trending in the right direction doesn't mean that in a highly volatile and dynamic battlefield situation, we should be taking our eyes and, off the prize and our hands off the wheel. That is what I would caution at this moment.
Well said, a caution well advised. Behnam Ben Taleblu, thank you for joining me from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, senior fellow there. Follow him on X at Behnam, B-E-H-N-A-M. Actually, The Real Behnam BT. The Real Behnam BT. And read him at FDD. Thank you. A few weeks ago, I had on my friend Dennis Prager talking about the new book he has authored with my next guest, Joel Alperin. The new book is If There Is No God. It is selling quite rapidly. Joel, how are you? Where are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm in Omaha, and respectfully, it's Alperson.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've got my notes back on the West Coast. Joel, you're in Omaha. That's where you had the original sit down with these kids from which you and Dennis wrote this book. How did you come to be in Omaha?
My grandparents moved here, and I don't know what brought them here originally, but my parents stayed, and I love the community, and I've stayed.
So I want to go back over for the people who missed the first interview with Dennis, and it's available on my YouTube channel. If There Is No God came out, maybe 3 weeks ago. I talked to Dennis so I could drop it on pub date. Page 49, the advice you two offer to every reader: live as if you believe God exists. Why, Joel?
Because if you don't, then there's no objective standard for morality. And people have to realize that if there's no objective standard for morality, everybody gets to make it up as they want. And in fact, we're living at a time right now where we're seeing that happen increasingly. Dennis had an op-ed that went in the New York Post recently, which talked about the number of people who supported the act of Luigi Mangione, the murder that he conducted in New York City. And a significant percentage of young people in particular endorsed that view. Once you take objective morality away, and that can only come from God, you've taken the guardrails off of morality. And as a result, anything anybody thinks is good can be good, because who is to say otherwise? All you have is conflicting opinions. You have no standards. It would be as if you tried to argue math without the laws of mathematics. One person can say 2 plus 2 is 4.
How I usually did math, Joel. That's how I usually did math. It didn't work out well. But when you write this, when you wrote the foreword, you talk about convening these kids in Omaha. Have you stayed in touch with any of them?
No, I mean, some of them are members of my synagogue, but I haven't. However, if this is what you're touching on, I did do a survey after the weekend was over. Now, granted, that was over 30 years ago. But I'll tell you, about half of the kids weren't very happy with the weekend. And when you think about it, it makes some sense, because they expected to come for a weekend on Jewish stuff and have a kumbaya session. And I didn't intentionally set it up to be a battle. That wasn't my intention. But as you know Dennis very well, if he disagrees, he'll make his disagreement known. And he did. And for a lot of these kids, it was the first time that they had heard somebody tell them that their most deeply held, passionately held feelings, beliefs, might have really bad consequences. And they didn't love hearing that very much.
No, Dennis's guiding precept for the 35 years I've known him is clarity before agreement. So let's make sure we know what we each believe. Then we can see if we can agree on something. But kudos to the kids. Page 75, one of them asked Dennis, why does it have to be biblical values? Why can't it just be human values? What's the answer to that, Joel Alperson?
Because you're back to what any one person thinks is good, and what any one person thinks is bad is bad. There were kids, and I think this is noted in the book, who, when questioned if they would challenge Hitler, if they thought Hitler was wrong, said, I think he's wrong, but I don't think I'd have the right to say so to him. I don't think I'd have the right to negate his belief. And that's what happens when it's human values. Human values is Latin for any values. And again, we're living at a time. I'm sorry?
I said, you're right. Any value at all. Doesn't matter. If human values, the next person can believe in genocide and you can't argue with them. Joel, I want to ask about the end of the book, because we had the attack on the synagogue in Michigan on Friday. I believe anti-Semitism is a result of the task for which the Jews were chosen. In the words of Edward Flannery, the eminent Catholic priest and historian, the Jews carry the burden of God and his moral law and history. Did you want that job, Joel?
There's a Talmudic story. The Talmud is an extensive commentary on the Torah, and not surprisingly, because it's part of the Jewish tradition, filled with debates, filled with disagreements and back and forth. But that's one of the things that makes it important and vital. There's a story that says, because the mountain, apparently the Jews were, according to the Hebrew, under the mountain, that God held the mountain over their heads, asking if they wanted to accept their responsibility. And so under those circumstances, they said, yeah. So even the Torah and the Talmud recognized this was not going to be an easy job.
It isn't, but the book makes it easier. If There Is No God by Dennis Prager and Joel Alperson. If there is no God, go to Amazon and get it. Thank you, Joel. Joined by Bethany Mandel. She is the founder of the MomWars.substack.com. She also sent me to Lahav Harkov last week. I had a good time with Lahav. I hope you heard that, Bethany.
I did not. It didn't make its way to me. I heard that it happened, but I did not read and listen.
Well, thank you for the recommendation. Bethany, first, I was listening to the commentary podcast today on which your husband Seth is a member, and he said that you're all very psyched about the Super Mario movie when it comes out, but nothing else. Is that an accurate representation of the Mandel household?
So you are the second person to quote the Commentary Magazine podcast to me in the last 15 minutes, and I have not listened to it yet. I do not include myself in the Mandel hype over Super Mario. But yes, I think they are all pretty hyped.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because John Podhoretz laid out some statistics on the decline in movie going from 2000 to 2020 to today, and it's a precipitous decline. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I used to do 2 movies a week. Even when we had kids, we were 2 movie a week people, 100 movies a year. How many movies a year do you see?
I see 0, unless, 0. Seth usually once, maybe twice, but he's bringing all 6 kids to this next one, and that's going to be over $100.
Oh yes. Oh, I've taken my grandkids to see terrible Disney movies, and it is $100. But the point being, are you going not going because of cost, or not going because of quality? Nothing there that interests you.
So I am a terrible millennial, and I don't really want to sit through 2.5 hours where I can't check my phone, if I'm just being honest with you.
Okay,
I lose attention.
You're a Gen
I'm the
Alpha.
worst.
All right, here is I'm going to switch to the war now. Ezra Klein, who was the surfing Santa in the 7th grade musical at my daughter's school. So I've known Ezra forever, but I've known him as a kid, so it's hard for me to take him seriously, even though he's done very well for himself. Here's the opening of Ezra's podcast for the New York Times today.
I found myself struggling to describe the war President Trump has chosen to enter into with Iran. The strange lightness with which he seems to have chosen this.
Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere.
I would say the war is spiraling out of control, but there's never a real pretense that it was under control. I find it hard to say Trump's plan for the war is failing because it is not clear there was any plan at all.
It goes on like that, Bethany.
It's
defeatist, demoralizing claptrap. And Ezra's a smart guy.
That from a bomb shelter?
But I don't know. It's absolutely absurd. But there is, and Noah Rothman gets very exercised about the defeatism demoralization campaign underway in elite media. and it doesn't affect the fact that we're winning decisively. And that's the story. We are crushing Iran. Why doesn't the left want to say that?
They don't want to give President Trump the W, but conversely, why is President Trump not out there doing victory laps left, right, up, and down? He's bothered by President Trump's tone. I want to hear more of it. I want to see the B-roll footage of the B-2 bomber flying over, and I want to see explosions. And I want to see, we killed so-and-so today. We killed so-and-so last week. Just a reminder, on day one, we killed the Ayatollah. The idea that there's no plan and that we've achieved nothing is ludicrous on its face.
It is ludicrous, but it's everywhere on the left, and it marks the first time in my life, and I'm 70 years old. I've been through a lot of wars, a lot of combat, some of them short, some of them long. This is the most decisive opening of any conflict, including Desert One, where it was over in 100 hours. This doesn't have any casualties on the ground. It has 12 dead Americans, which is tragic, but no casualties from ground troops as happened in Desert One. So I'm just thinking to myself, these people don't know history, or they simply don't care about facts. And I think it's probably both.
I think it's both, but I think that they're actively rooting against the United States victory because America winning is President Trump winning. And it reminds me of the Rush Limbaugh quote from when Barack Obama became president. And he said, I'd love nothing more than for him to succeed because his success is America's success. That's what they should be saying, and that's what they should be signaling to the world, is that they're still rooting for America. They're very clearly not.
They're clearly not. Now, if you were a leftist and you wanted to be responsible, you might say something like, there's no denying that the American military is awesome, that the Iranians are only to get off Yosemite Sam, shooting in every direction, hitting all of our allies. They've killed a couple of dozen people with thousands of missiles and drones. They're not very good at it, and their command structure is shattered, but they're not dead yet, and they might hang on. So we should either keep it up, double it up, or set terms for which are reasonable for them to concede. But this idea that we're not winning and there was no plan, do they not know anybody in the Pentagon? Anyone in the military? Do you not know how planned this is? This is 14 pages of targets.
Can you imagine what these people would have been like in 1942?
Oh.
Like the stamina that they don't have to
Japanese.
Make it a month?
They'd be learning Japanese.
Yes.
They
yes.
really surrender monkeys, we would have called them.
Yep.
And
yep.
I think it is a disease, and I don't know how the country recovers from it. I also think, by the way, if it was a Democratic president, they'd be all for it, and they would be saying, they would be reporting the truth. But Ezra is the most responsible of the least responsible. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, it absolutely does. And I agree with you. But this is that we're on the 6th anniversary of COVID right now, and we're finally delving into now it can be said territory with like, oh, maybe school closures were bad. Oh, maybe cloth masks were stupid. We're going to get there with this war in 6 years.
You mean 6 years from now, we will recognize that it was a strategic and tactical success. In fact, if Cuba falls, Venezuela falls, and Iran is defanged, do you think Trump goes down among the greatest wartime presidents?
How does he not? How does he not? Meanwhile, in Venezuela, they raised the American flag at the American embassy yesterday.
Yeah, but that's symbolic, crazy. Don't you know? They haven't. Yeah. I know they're trying very hard to not look at Cuba and Venezuela. They're trying hard not to look at how China has lost decisively in the last 2 weeks. But Bethany Mandel, I know you will be covering it in the momwars.substack.com. I do want to thank you for Lahav Harkov. That was a great interview. And we'll talk again next week. Bethany Mandel, thank you. Coming up, Larry Elder on most of these stations in your car radio, on the Salem Radio Network, on the Salem News Channel. Don't miss Larry. Also want to remind you, Consumer Cellular is your go-to for saving money on cellular service, 1-800-411-4454. My code is Hugh. You get your second month for free. 1-800-411-4454. Call and use the consumer service that is U.S.-based. Making the switch takes about 20 minutes. You'll get your second month free, and you'll save money. You'll really save money if you're 50 years and older, because they have 2 lines, unlimited data, $60 a month. Plus, you get that second month free when you use my code name, Hugh. But you got to call to get it. 1-800-411-4454 or go to consumercellular.com/Hugh, consumercellular.com/Hugh. I'm back in Studio Beltway, and I have my relief factor, and boy, do I need it. Dreaded overhead bin on Friday and Saturday and Thursday, and it's a nightmare. I've done something. Don't know what I've done, but I'm taking my relief factor. It's the upper left arm. Some doctor out there. What did I do? Somebody tell me. But I'm taking my carrion, curcumin, and resveratrol omega because I did my 5 miles along the Potomac this morning before the storms blew in. And you know what? That's a good thing. Because the storms have really blown in. I got to go downtown now to do a special report with Brett Baer on the panel. Hope I don't get blown off the 14th Street Bridge. But it's really quite a bit of weather that the Beltway is having. One day of weather a year isn't too bad of a thing. But relief factor works for those 5 miles. They're flat here. There is no implacable hill. I go by the river. And when you go by the river, it's just flat. I mean, a little up and a little bit down. But for some, I've done 5 miles in 2 weeks because of the time and getting out of town, getting back to the Beltway. I want you to call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or go to their website, find the starter pack, $19.95 at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Now, finally, let me remind you, we are in the middle of our campaign for Food for the Poor. There's a blue banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. That blue banner says, Give Living Water. Your $50 gift, just $50, will provide clean water for 2 children for a year. You can also call 855-359-4673, 1-855-359-4673. But listen to this from Food for the Poor.
We could never, ever do it without Food for the Poor and their donors. And we pray for you every day. And I know that person up in the mountain, they'll be praying. They'll be praying and blessing you for the rest of their lives.
They will, and so will the good Lord. And it is Lent, and you ought to be doing almsgiving. And the best way to do that is with Food for the Poor. Head to the top of HughHewitt.com, find the blue banner, Give Living Water, or call right now, 855-359-4673. Thousands of you have all stepped up. I would like more of you to do so, to join those who have already done so. And I thank you in advance for getting clean water and good food to the children of the highlands of Guatemala, in Haiti, and other impoverished areas throughout our hemisphere.